My life is good. I write was hood. I might get to it. Not out the woods, so bro, I got to do it. Be a monster. That's why my mantra.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. So today we're going to do something very interesting. I was sitting back thinking to myself, why did Stone Cold Steve Austin's heel turn fail? Now, some people will say, well, everybody loves Steve Austin. That's why. Nobody wanted to boo him. Of course, that's why it failed. And I say, like, that's very surface level. Let's do a little bit of digging. Why did Stone Cold Steve Austin's heel turn fail? So, for the record, Stone Cold Steve Austin turned heel at the end of WrestleMania 17, right? He shook hands with the evil Vince McMahon, who was at the time his greatest enemy. So that's the setup. Okay, so here's the question. Let's break it down to some questions. Who is Stone Cold Steve Austin? Right? Let's ask that question. Now, not who is he, as in Steve Williams as Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's not what I mean. I mean, go a little bit deeper than that. What is the character of Stone Cold Steve Austin? The character of Stone Cold Steve Austin is a man who has, suffered under being controlled by corporate entities. And now he decided he doesn't want to do that anymore. He's rebelling against the system. He's against the system. He's against the corporation, Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? And now Vince McMahon, who represents the corporation, Steve Austin and Vince McMahon are now shaking hands. They're buddies now, apparently. And so, all right, what changed? That's the second question. We got who Stone Cold Steve Austin is and how that factors in how you're supposed to feel about, him shaking hands with Vince. So what changed? Let's see. He wore red knee braces. That's kind of what changed. Okay, and that's why it failed. Right? So Stone Cold Steve Austin as a character did not change that much. If the idea was to get heat, and if the idea was to turn Stone Cold Steve Austin into a heel, then Stone Cold Steve Austin should have changed his values. He should have embraced the corporation. Instead, he embraced Vince McMahon. Now, Stone Cold Steve Austin, throughout his heel turn, was still being paranoid. He was the bionic redneck. He was still being paranoid, which the Stone Cold Steve Austin character is paranoid enough as it is, because his whole thing, even when he was a babyface, was don't trust anybody. So his gimmick was don't trust anybody. He was part of the alliance, don't trust anybody. So that's, it's consistent. He hasn't changed his values. When you turn a villain or hero into a villain, the chief way of solidifying that the hero has become a villain is a change of values, not just behaviors. It is a change of values. Just because Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin are standing in the same ring and they're buddies, doesn't mean that Stone Cold Steve Austin has changed his values. Vince McMahon could have changed his values. They could have come to an agreement or an understanding. Right? Where Stone Cold gets to continue to be himself, but gets the corporate success, or gets the corporate access, or whatever the hell, right? And in this situation, they tried to turn Stone Cold Steve Austin into something that, he was, a singing bad guy. He was being mean. He was being rude. He's also being obnoxious. They were trying to make him annoying, with the guitars and the cookies and all that stuff, right? The one thing that they did not do is they did not change his values. That's why it failed. If Stone Cold Steve Austin, let's put it like this, give you this idea. I want you to have this visual in your mind if you don't understand what I'm saying. Stone Cold Steve Austin starts Raw the very next night. Glass breaks, He walks out in a suit and tie. He comes out in a suit and tie. He gets in the ring wearing his suit and tie. No beer, nothing. He starts talking about how, he thanks the WWF for giving him the opportunity. He starts saying how Vince McMahon is the greatest promoter in the history of the business, and he killed ECW and he killed WCW, and how WCW has screwed him over, and he owes all of his success to Vince McMahon. And that, he realizes that Vince McMahon is right. Nobody can defeat this company. Now that WCW and ECW are gone, Vince McMahon was right. There is no competition anymore. Therefore, Vince McMahon is correct. Vince was always right. I was stupid, and you were stupid to believe me that we could fight against this. It is what it is. The WWE, or the WWF at the time, is the greatest wrestling promotion in the world. And I now have nowhere else to work. So, I bend the knee to Vince McMahon. He's the best promoter in the world. He's the greatest. And instead of Steve Austin being this renegade who Vince can barely control, he's a puppet. He's a pet even. He can, Vince is giving him orders like, Steve, go get him. And Austin's like, you're damn right, boss. I'm going to get him. Calling him boss, Mr. McMahon. Everything that The Rock, and then you obviously have The Rock do the opposite. The Rock was the corporate champion at one point. The Rock, of course, reverses. They was writing him out of the show anyway, but he could have reversed course as far as being the guy who now represents, not being anti-WWF, but being anti-Steve Austin, maybe calling him a sellout and that kind of stuff. That would have changed everything. Now, even if you did the heel turn in Texas, which made no sense because they did it in front of Steve Austin's home crowd. They did it for Swerve, bro, even though I don't think he certainly wasn't there. Even though he might have some influence. It depends on who you ask. Whether Vince Russo had any sort of hand in early to mid 2000s WWF. In any event, Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't change his values. So it didn't work. People still saw him as the bionic redneck who was against the corporation. They saw him trying to work within. What they should have seen was Stone Cold Steve Austin become the system. That's when he would have gotten over as a heel. When you turn somebody heel, they have to embrace the values of the heel. That's the difference. When you read a comic book and a hero and a villain works together, that doesn't necessarily mean that the hero is a villain or that the villain is a hero. It's just sometimes there's things outside of that they have to work together on. For instance, there's a comic book where Dr. Doom and Iron Man work together. Dr. Doom is a villain, right? So, and Iron Man is a hero. But once they are both thrust into this King Arthur-like world where they have to work together to find out how to get home, they can come to an understanding for this short amount of time without either one of them changing. Neither one of them had to change their values. Now, even though, there were things that were taking place, Dr. Doom was trying to find out how the magic system there works because he's always looking to get more power, where Iron Man's trying to learn about the technology and all the magic and all that kind of stuff. He has a different way of going through the world. The general idea is neither one of them changed their values. You can write a story in which, believe there were stories of Spider-Man and Venom working together to fight Carnage. Right? There's Carnage, who is a bigger threat than Spider-Man or Venom, to Spider-Man or Venom, right? That's the situation where people will accept good guys and bad guys working together. If there's a common goal, people will say, okay, it's all right for good guys and bad guys to work together. I see it. I see how it could work. But when you embrace the values of the villain and you become the villain, when you become corrupted, that's when people really start to turn on you. And that's what they failed to do with Stone Cold Steve Austin. It wasn't just that they did it in Texas, so it didn't work. It's like it didn't work anywhere else. So that's because it's not that he didn't get booed in Texas. It's that he didn't get booed anywhere because they didn't change him enough. They should have changed him completely. Think about how much you hated Corporate Kane or Corporate Baron Corbin. What did they do? They took all the cool stuff away from Kane. They put him in slacks and a shirt. If Stone Cold Steve Austin would have done that, that would have gotten over. People would have hated that. They would have hated, and it may have damaged the business if they'd have done it, which is probably why they didn't do it, right? Because it's hard to come back when you do that. That's why you can't do heel turns in like comic books and movies and stuff like that, right? The hero has to be static, or at least if they have a character arc, they have to at least stay they can't accept the villain's morals, right? even if they work together, they have to ultimately reject the villain's morals, because it's going to be very hard. But if they really wanted to get Stone Cold Steve Austin over as a heel, that's what they would have done. They would have had him accept the values of Vince McMahon. He would have been a corporate champion. He would have been the corporate champion. Then they could have built up other people who could have been against that corporation, and they didn't do it. All right. So thank you guys for listening. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for your time. Donate to the channel. Feel free through Cash App or through Subscribe Star. Either way it goes. And thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later.